If only people knew how much I wish I was normal like them, even for just one day, for me to feel how people feel confident while doing their normal activities. Sometimes I even just tell myself, if I could just be normal for one day and not feel anxious even for a day. Every single day I usually feel anxious. There's no day that have ended without me feeling anxious. It's something that has really affected my life. I even don't know if I'll remain single for the rest of my life. By the way, in my life, I feel like writing here. Don't ask me, I'm always quiet because everywhere I go, people always tell me, mbona unakuwa umenyamaza hivyo? Why are you always so quiet? You get, it's so bad. This condition is so bad. It affects school work life, relationship wise. Yani. For me to be here before you people in front of this camera, it's taken a lot of courage. I'm already feeling so anxious on the inside, sitting here and having to speak in front of this camera and share my story in front of you guys. But despite the fact that I'm so anxious on the inside, I'm going to do it until the end. Okay, my name is Jacinta Wambui. I'm 24 years old. I've been living with social anxiety disorder and androphobia, which means that I'm scared of men since childhood. Social anxiety is more than just being shy. There is more to having social anxiety than being shy and quiet. I can describe social anxiety as an invisible disorder. It's a silently painful experience. On the outside, you may appear normal, but on the inside, you are a mess. There's a difference between being shy and having social anxiety. Being shy is when you feel a little bit nervous being around people or interacting with people, but you are able to overcome it. But for social anxiety, it's the extreme fear, intense fear of being judged, being scrutinized, being embarrassed, being evaluated negatively by people. And it gets to a point where you avoid social situations at all costs. And when you're in those social situations, you experience a lot of physical symptoms. Your heart starts to beat rapidly, you start to sweat, trembling, shaking, nausea, blushing, you avoid eye contact. You have these physical symptoms, anxiety attacks, panic attacks, and sometimes it's so overwhelming, you end up avoiding situations where you might have to experience those symptoms. It cuts from that small thing, from making phone calls, talking on the phone, dating, meeting new people, interacting with unfamiliar people, going to a shop to order something, eating in front of people, eating in public, taking a public transport, walking in the streets. You always feel like as if everyone is staring at you. You are always experiencing extreme, excessive fear while doing every single activity. Let me tell you, I can't go to a restaurant and eat in front of people unless it's a restaurant where I know, like these cheap restaurants in town where you know you'll sit while facing the mirror. But these other restaurants that you know you'll be seated and people are all there, I can't, because of how much anxious I feel. Sometimes I even stay hungry because I know I want to be able to eat in front of people or go and order something from somewhere. For androphobia, which means that I'm scared of men since childhood, this fear that I have towards men has really impacted my life negatively. Up to now, at 24 years, I've never had a boyfriend, I've never dated. Not that guys have never approached me or asked me out, but I always put them off at the first instance. I always avoid them at all costs. To them, it comes out as just being shy. I can give a list of about even more than maybe even 20 or 15 guys who have told me that, and you are shy, now come woga, but it's always very, very hard for me to tell. How can you tell a guy that you fear them? You know, it will sound irrational, they won't understand, and that's why I avoid men at all costs. Interactions with men drain me. I always feel so fearful interacting with them, and I avoid them. It doesn't matter who that guy is. Even my male cousins, I don't even socialize with them. I don't interact with them. I've never had any male friend, any person, any male that I can say is my friend. And I usually feel so bad when I'm with my age mates and they start talking about relationship stuff. I always get out of there like fire. I always just run away because I know that when they are sharing their experiences, I won't have anything to say. I'll just be there the whole time, just quiet. And I've always been asked by some of the people, Jacinta, have you even ever had a boyfriend? And I always feel bad because I know I've never had a boyfriend, and I don't know what I can tell them. I don't know even how I can tell them that I've never had a boyfriend or I'll have never had a male friend because I'm scared of men. You see, they'll just laugh and they'll find it stupid, but it's something that has really affected my life. I even don't know if I'll remain single for the rest of my life. I even have this picture of me at only 3 years, and in that picture, I'm crying. The reason for me crying is because I was afraid to stand next to this boy who was my age and be taken a picture together with that boy. I remember growing up asking my mom, why was I crying this picture? And my mom telling me that you are crying this picture because you are afraid of standing next to this boy and be taken a picture together. And whenever I look at that picture, I see a traumatized kid. I see a kid who was not helped, who was suffering in silence and was not helped. I can't imagine how at only 3 years, I feared men so much. And these two mental health conditions, androphobia and social anxiety disorder, they have really impacted my life negatively in a very bad way. And they all stem back from my childhood. Below the age of 3 years, I was sexually abused and raped. And what I never knew was that my childhood trauma left mental and psychological scars that I'm still struggling with up to date. And who I am today is majorly because of what I went through in my childhood. Growing up, I never knew that such a huge wound was embedded in me for so long. I had lost all memories of ever experiencing those childhood trauma of being abused sexually as a child. I never knew it growing up, but I used to ask myself, okay, why am I always so afraid of men? Why am I always, I can't be that I fear men for no reason. No, there's no normal person who can have this huge fear towards men if they've not gone through something with those men. So it used to hurt me so much, and I didn't know who I would share with. And the day I discovered that it's true, I went through something like that, it hurt me so much to realize that even I was not taken for therapy or help. Can you imagine? My parents already knew at 3 years that I feared boys, but they just, maybe they thought I'll outgrow it, but up to now I've never outgrown it. I never used to interact with people. I was always a loner. I can even remember back in primary when I joined class 1. It was my first day in school, and I remember during break time, all the students got out of class with so much happiness to go outside and play, but I remained in class all alone, not because I was sick, but because of so much anxiety, so much fear in me. I couldn't get out of class and go and have to interact with my classmates and pray with them. So I remained in class. And the moment I saw that I was the only one in class, I got out of class and I went to the field. But can you imagine, I never went to play with my classmates. I just went and stood somewhere all alone, staring at my classmates as they were playing with each other. And I remember one of my classmates coming to me and asking me, Sasa, what's your name? And even me saying my name to that girl, I was feeling so much fearful and afraid. To a point, even speaking was a problem. But I just forced myself to tell that girl my name, and the girl convinced me to go and play with them. I had refused, but she took my hand and she forced me to go and play with them. In class, I never used to talk. I was always quiet. I never said anything. Even raising my hand to answer a question in class was a very big help for me. And one time in class 5, I remember we had this teacher, and this teacher nicknamed me Mayai. This teacher nicknamed me Mayai because the teacher thought that I never used to behave my age. At that time, I was only 10 years. But my behaviors looked immature, like that of a very young kid. And this teacher started calling me Mayai. Mayai is something that is weak, something that, an egg, when you take an egg and it falls, it will break. Now, the teacher used to call me Mayai all the time. This made all the class 5 students started calling me Mayai. The teacher used to tease me a lot and bully me a lot. What hurt me the most is that the teacher never even took time to even sit me down and ask me, why are you always like this? Why are you always so fearful, Mwoga? Why are you like this? The teacher just judged me, and the teacher was a female. So it used to hurt me so much. And also another time, still in class 5, I was made to sit between 2 boys. And that was one of the worst days of my life, worst times of my life. And during class lessons, I always put my hand like this on the desk to avoid them having to look at me. I was always feeling extreme fear just being around them, and it hurt me so much. My classmates used to make fun of me and ask me, why am I always so scared of boys for no reason? Can you imagine? I reconnected with a classmate of mine. We studied together in primary school through Facebook, and we started talking on WhatsApp. And the first thing that girl asked me when we started talking on WhatsApp was, Jacinta, uliacha kuogopa boys? That really shocked me. It hit me so hard. I couldn't believe it. That really hurt me so much. I couldn't believe it that after 10 years I'm still struggling with the same thing, and that this girl has never forgotten. It hurt me so much, and I just avoided replying to her, and I changed the topic. But I spent the rest of the week feeling so sad, asking myself, God, you mean it was this real back in primary? You mean people knew it? For me, I thought maybe people didn't know about it because I had already forgotten my primary life. But just discovering that people already knew it in primary really hurt me. When I joined high school, I had now started, in high school you are now in adolescent. And I remember I was so anxious about going to a boarding school. I didn't know how my life would turn out in high school, and I really suffered in high school. But I thank God because our school was somewhat very Christian, so there was not that much bullying. That's when I started noticing that I was different from other students, because in primary I used to stay at home. Now in high school you spend most of your time with these students. You see how they behave and you ask yourself, why am I this different? Why can't I even express myself for even a minute? Why am I always so this quiet? Why do I find it hard to interact with my classmates, to connect with people? My prayer every day was, God, deliver me from the spirit of fear. I don't want to live with this spirit of fear, because I felt that it was interfering with my performance in school, and I didn't really know what to do. Every time a pastor would come to our school and say, Ati, those with issues, kujeni mbele, muombewe, come in front and be prayed for. I was always among the people who went there in front. I became so religious because I wanted God to deliver me from the spirit of fear. For me, I thought I had this spirit of fear. And every time I would go in front, the fear never went away. After the pastors had gone, the bishops, I still had the same condition. I still had the same issue. This one time in Form 3 is when all my little self-esteem of speaking in front of the class was destroyed completely. And you know, during a sect book class, all the students are supposed to read in front, to read a little bit of a passage. And I remember the moment the teacher said that, I started feeling intense fear, panic, anxiety kicked in me. I started having these panic attacks, trembling, shaking, feeling nausea. And I remember when it was my turn to read, I read the first sentence. When I was about to read the second sentence, my voice became shaky. My voice became so shaky to a point I started crying. I couldn't take it anymore. So I started crying because of how much anxious I was feeling. And that moment, I felt as if I was going to stand up and get out of that class and that school and never come back, because I was feeling this extreme anxiousness in me and I couldn't control it. That's why I was crying, because from Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, I was tired of always feeling this way. And I couldn't understand why even for just 10 minutes, I could just be confident to speak in front of the class. When it came to my studies back in high school, I always underperformed. I always got, the highest I got maybe was a C minus. I used to get D's, C minus. That's how my performance was. And I remember every time we had parents coming to our school, I always knew that my parents would live with a negative image about me, because every time they came to school, when we were going to interact with the teachers, the only thing the teachers would say was that Jacinta doesn't participate in class, is always quiet in class, you get. And it used to hurt me every time. And I used to fear academic days, because I knew every time my mom or my dad would come, they would always be told of how quiet I was in class, of how I didn't participate in any class activity. It really used to hurt me so much. But I didn't know what to do. And to make it even worse, no teacher even sat me, not one single teacher even sat me one day and asked me, Jacinta, why are you always like this? They just ignored it, and they never helped me. Back at home, things were very, very bad for me. I was always alone. I used to spend most of my time in the house. I remember even one time, my dad had to push me out of the house to go and play with other kids, because I was always in the house, day in, day out, just watching TV. I never even had these people you can say that they are your childhood friends back at home. I never had even one single friend back at home. And every time, I used to hate every time we would go for social gatherings back at home, be it family gathering, get together. I used to hate them. And I used to hate Christmas. I used to hate Christmas a lot, because I knew during Christmas we would have to go to my mom's side, my mom's home. And every time we went there, you know, there are a lot of people. Guests come, people are always coming in and out. And every time we'll go there, will always be so quiet. I was always feeling anxious and afraid to go and play with them, because there were girls and boys. I was so afraid. And I used to admire how my sister was so confident to play with them. But me, I was always so anxious to go and play with them, and no one understood me. Up to now, I still feel anxious going to the Ushago, my mother's side. And sometimes people might think that you don't care about them. Because most of the time you are always quiet, you avoid going there. Because me, I always avoid going there because of the much anxiety that I usually feel of having to be around them and having to interact with them, having to being around just anyone makes me anxious, and I avoid it at all cost. I usually hate family gatherings. Before a family gathering, I usually spend the whole week feeling anxious about that event. How is it going to turn out? It gets to a point sometimes I get tempted to use alcohol to manage my anxiety, especially during social events. I get tempted, but I avoid it at all costs. And it's usually very, very bad for me. So I usually do it with a lot of struggle in me. It's a real struggle. And you know one thing about social anxiety, it fights you all day. It never gets tired. It fights you from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. So it's always so overwhelming for me. The only time I don't feel anxious, I can say it's when I'm alone in the house. I'm the only one in the house, and when I'm asleep. When I'm alone, I won't feel anxious. Let's say I'm in the street walking alone, I won't feel anxious. But when I'm around anyone, from my dad, from my grandmother, from my aunties, from everyone, I always feel anxious being around anyone, even people I'm used to. And it even makes it hard for me to even have friends, even make friends, even connect with people, because you are always feeling anxious, out of place. You feel as if you bore people, as if people will laugh at you when you interact, people will judge you. So most of the time you avoid interactions with people, and it's not easy. After finishing high school, I was now supposed to join college. College is where I've suffered the most. Even whenever I think about it, I even don't know why I even went to that college. I even don't know how I survived in college. Social anxiety can make you quit school. I remember when I heard that I was going to join college, I was so anxious and afraid of how I'll survive in college. You know, in college now you are free to the world. You are not enclosed like in high school where you're enclosed in one area, all of you. College, you are free to do whatever you want, free to interact with whoever you want. And I remember the first day I joined college, the moment I got to that gate, before I could enter, I was already feeling anxious. I was shaking, trembling. I was in so much anxiety to a point I felt as if I was going to turn around and go home. But I just forced myself to enter that gate, and I went straight to the lecture class. But on reaching the lecture class, I was already late for class. On peeping through the window, I saw that all my classmates were seated down. And the class was so full. We were about 200 students, first years. And the moment I saw that, my anxiety increased even the more. My fear was that if I open the door, all the students are going to look behind and see, who is that girl who is entering? So that fear made me to just stand there like a person who was so confused. I didn't know what to do. Social anxiety makes you have this thing called the spotlight effect, where your mind tells you that everyone is staring at you. Even when people are not staring at you, when you are with a group of people, your mind always tells you that everyone is staring at you, everyone is judging you. So you can imagine I'm sitting behind, all the students are facing in front, but all that time I'm confused, I'm feeling dizzy, I'm trembling, I'm shaking, I'm having all these physical symptoms of anxiety, and my mind is telling me that everyone is staring at me. I felt as if I was going to get out of that class and go away and never come back, but I just forced myself. I never used to concentrate in class. All the time, I used to dread going to college. Each and every time I would wake up in the morning, and as I was ironing my clothes, I would be feeling so anxious all the time, and I would feel as if I will not go to that school, but I just had to force myself because I had no choice. I had to go to school. I couldn't stay at home. I used to make myself busy by pretending that I'm reading. I used to carry this novel all the time in college, and I pretend that I'm busy reading it to avoid interactions with people. I dreaded having to interact with people or socialize with people at all in college. This one time we had a presentation in class, and I was chosen to present for a group. That day I went in front of that class, and it was me with another guy. And as we were about to present, when it was my turn, even scrolling the laptop was an issue. I couldn't. I was trembling and shaking so much, I couldn't. I got confused to a point that guy told me to just leave it, that he was going to explain to the class. And after he was through, I was so embarrassed, and I felt so humiliated. I felt like less of a person. And I remember the lecturer saying that if you know you are not so confident, build on your confidence, because you know this course involves having to interact with people. And sometimes it got to a point I failed to take my project. That day I was so anxious to a point I couldn't gather enough courage to go and just enter in a lecturer's office and present my project to her. And it was a lady. The lecturer told me to go and write a letter of why I never brought my project. I went and I sat down and asked myself, now what will I do? I decided to write the truth. I wrote in that form, I wrote that the reason for me not bringing my project was because I was feeling so much anxiousness in me. You know, I have this condition, and I was so anxious that day to a point I couldn't bring my project. The moment the lecturer read that letter, the lecturer was so shocked. To a point she told me, Jacinta, what is this? You mean the reason for you not bringing was because you are feeling fearful? She was so shocked, and she forgave me in that instance. And she asked me if I've ever sought any type of help, and I just told her yes. And from that day I was forgiven, but it used to interfere with my performance in college. Most of the time in college I was always told that, and you are always serious, na unakuanga very serious all the time. You get even people, by the way, there's someone who told me that, hey, you are always very serious, to a point unakaa mkali. Someone might even be afraid to talk to you. Yes, that was true. Most of the time I was always very serious in college. I used to have this resting bitch face, not because it used to come out because of how much anxious I was, and I didn't want to interact with people. Can you imagine? A whole year almost ended without even some of my classmates knowing what my name was, because I was always very quiet in class. And every time we had lecture class, I was always feeling anxious, and I feared speaking to people. Like, speaking to someone will make me feel anxious all the time. The only people I spoke to was about a list of only 4 classmates of mine. I was always very quiet. And during my second year of college, we were supposed to go for attachment for 3 months. Even me having to look for attachment was an issue. My aunt helped me, and I got attachment at this particular farm in Gigiri. I remember the first day I went, and I was welcomed well. I was even bought for lunch. The first day was not that bad for me, but as the days went by, my anxiety became even more and more worse. I used to fear interacting with my coworkers, my bosses. I used to dread it when my boss would call me to the office. Sometimes it used to get so worse to a point I'll wake up from my desk and go to the toilet to calm down. I used to feel so anxious to a point I just wake up, I get out of my chair, and I go to the toilet. I stayed there for 10 minutes trying to calm myself down. I used to suffer so much at work, and every time I would go to work, the moment I would enter that door, anxiety would increase the more. Even me having to greet my coworkers every single morning was a huge thing for me. I used to dread having to greet them, and it really hurt me so much to know that I couldn't even concentrate on what I was doing during that attachment period. I couldn't even connect with these people, get to know how the industry is, get even to know them personally. It was so hard for me. Even during lunchtime, I used to experience a lot of anxiety, having to go for lunch and having to eat in front of them. It was always so bad for me. This one day is when my life changed. It's when I learned everything that I had been going through. It was now on October, and I was still going for that attachment. And I became so tired of feeling this way. This is when it hit me so hard that there was something really wrong with me. I went through primary, experiencing this type of extreme fear, primary. High school, I went through the same. College, and now still at work, I'm still feeling extreme fear. For me, at that time, I still thought that it's only fear. I never knew that it was social anxiety. This one day, I came to work as normal, and before I could enter even the office, anxiety that day was so high. I was trembling, shaking. I was feeling nausea, dizzy. I felt as if I was going to fall down. I think that day my anxiety attacks were so bad. To a point I couldn't enter the office like that. I knew I couldn't make it. So I started crying. I didn't know what to do. I took my phone and I called my aunt. And I told her, "Auntie, I want to see a counselor." I remember my aunt told me to calm down. And my aunt told me that she was going to look for a counselor. She was going to search for a counselor so that I would go to a counseling session. And the moment my aunt told me that, I hung up the phone and I somewhat felt a little bit relieved, because I knew that it was time I see a counselor. It was time I get help. I was tired of always suffering alone, always feeling this way. This anxiety, this fear was limiting me. It was limiting my growth in life, career-wise. It was affecting all areas of my life. So I knew it was time I get help. And the moment I was seated in that chair of that counseling office, when you go to a counseling session, you are always given a form where you have to fill in the details, what has brought you here. And I remember the first thing I wrote was, what has brought me here is fear. I only wrote the word fear in capital letters. And when we went to the counseling room and we sat down, the counselor asked me, "Jacinta, you've come here because of fear." Yeah, and I just opened up to that counselor. Everything that I had never told anyone. I told her how my life has been full of fear, extreme fear all the time, feeling fearful, doing everything. I also told her how I've always feared boys, men, guys, all ages. And I cried that day. And I remember the counselor even telling me, "Jacinta, from the way you are crying, the pain is coming from deep within you." I was in so much pain that day because I was tired of always feeling this way, and I couldn't figure out what was really wrong with me. And from then, the counselor told me to write a journal of everything that I was going through. And every Saturday, I used to go for the counseling sessions. But after 3 Saturdays of counseling sessions, I felt that I'm not getting help. The counselor is only advising me, telling me to do this, to change my thoughts, think positive, do things this way, but I felt it was not helping me. Remember, during the week, I'm still going to attachment. I'm still going to work. So during the weekdays, I'm still feeling the same anxiety, the same fear all the time. And I felt, the counselor, after 3 weeks, and I'm paying, and the counselor is not helping me. No, I'm going to quit. And I told my aunt that I was now okay. Remember, I'm not okay. I've not yet been helped, but I didn't know what to do. I had to end the counseling sessions because I felt that my aunt is paying for those counseling sessions and I'm not being helped. My family members are paying. My dad, they are removing their own money, paying for me, and I'm not getting help. And I didn't know. The worst of all, I couldn't bring myself to tell my family members. It was so hard for me. Like, how was I going to tell them that I'm always feeling fear? You see, they won't get me. They will just tell me, "Calm down, you'll get over it. Try and be confident, be bold." So it was so hard for me. And I quit going to the counseling sessions after 3 weeks of going for it. I still continued with my attachment, still suffering the same way. Let me tell you, my attachment days, nilikuwa navumilia. You know, kuvumilia, the way you can vumilia something, that's how my life was during attachment. I was always suffering, but navumilia, because I knew if I quit this attachment, I won't proceed to that year. And me not proceeding to that day, I won't finish my course. And so I had to vumilia. I had no choice because I didn't want to disappoint my family members. And this one day, that's when I discovered everything. It was on November date 6, 2018. I discovered it on my own. I even don't, up to now, I don't know how I discovered it on my own. I think it's God who helped me to discover it. Because I think God had seen how much I was suffering. To a point, he now felt that it was time I discover what was really wrong with me all these years. That day, it was a normal Tuesday like any other, but that day, my co-workers and my boss had gone for a meeting. I was the only one remaining in that office. So I was told that I'm free to leave. I was the only one remaining together with the person who was washing there and who was in charge of the office. So I was told that today you are free to leave. You can leave even at 2 p.m. You can leave early. But I told because I had my own laptop at that time, I told myself, let me stay and use this free Wi-Fi to watch things on YouTube. And something told me to go on YouTube, and I went direct to YouTube and I typed, why do I fear? Why do I always feel fearful? And I remember the thing that appeared there shocked me so much. I saw social anxiety documentary. That's the thing that appeared after I typed, why do I fear people? Why am I always feeling so fearful? I was so shocked. And I remember I pressed on that social anxiety documentary and I started listening to it from the beginning to the end. It really opened my eyes. I couldn't believe it. Everything they were saying in that video was what I had been going through all these years without knowing what was wrong with me. I couldn't believe it. Let me tell you, I watched it till the end, and when it was through, I went to the toilet. I went and sat down in the floor and I cried. I cried for about 20 minutes. I really cried. My handkerchief was so wet because of so much pain. I couldn't believe that. At that point, I was only 21 years. I couldn't believe that for almost 20 years, I had been living with social anxiety disorder, a mental health condition, and I didn't know that I had been suffering all these years, not even knowing what was wrong with me. I used to feel, yes, that there was something wrong with me. I used to feel that I can't be normal. I can't be that I'm always feeling so fearful, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly what it was. So it tore me apart to discover it, and it even made me feel so mad at myself. You know, having a mental health condition is not something that is easy, because it comes off as something shameful. It's not something good. So it even lowered my self-esteem so much. I felt like a loser. I felt so much like a loser. And after I had finished crying, I went and packed my stuff and I went home. I remember even walking the streets in town. I was feeling dizzy, confused. I felt as if I didn't even have the strength to walk. My eyes were so red. I didn't know what to do. I felt as if I was going to go and be knocked by a car because I couldn't accept that I have a mental health illness. It was so shocking for me. I couldn't accept it. I felt as if I was going to die. And I remember when I went home, I was taken to the hospital. And the doctor gave me a lot of medicine to take. But after 1 week, I was okay. After 1 week, I had already healed. But I remember my aunt telling me that, do you know that when we went to see a doctor, the doctor had told me that you need to see a psychiatrist. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. That when we went to the hospital with my aunt, the doctor noticed how anxious I was, and the doctor had recommended my aunt for them to take me to a psychiatrist, but they never did. So after going back to work, I decided to go and look for a psychiatrist myself. So I went online and I searched for a psychiatrist, and I came across this one psychiatrist. And what I did, I went and told my family members that I want to go and see a psychiatrist, and they agreed, and I was given money. And you know, in Kenya, one thing that makes people with mental health conditions not to go to seek help is because of the money. It's so expensive. Can you imagine going for one session to a psychiatrist was 3,000. One session, and it's about only 40 minutes. So that it was so hard for me, but I was given the cash. Thank God I was given the cash to go and see a psychiatrist. And I went on my own. The first session, and I went on my own. And I went and I sat down with the psychiatrist, and I explained to her everything that I was going through. She explained to me what social anxiety was all about, and then the psychiatrist, she just did it in general. She just explained it to me and told me how I was going to manage it, and she gave me these medicines. After getting out of there, I felt, I didn't feel as if the psychiatrist had helped me. According to me, I felt I had not yet gotten the help I needed, and I didn't know what to do. The medicine that I was supposed to take, I was supposed to take them for 2 weeks. And remember, I'm still going through the attachment. I have not yet finished my attachment. So every day as I used to go to work, I used to take that medicine in the morning and in the evening. And after taking that medicine for 1 week, it got to a point every time I'll come from work, I had to sleep because I was always feeling these headaches, extreme headaches, to a point I decided to quit taking those medicine. I decided to quit taking them, and also they were not helping me that much. I would still take those medicines, and each time I'll go to work, I'll still experience the same anxieties while doing everything. It was not easy for me, and I told myself that the next session when I go to the psychiatrist, what I'll do, I'll go with one of my family members. I was supposed to go with my dad, but that day my dad was busy. So we went together with my aunt. The psychiatrist was supposed to explain everything to my aunt. And that day I was a little bit happy because I felt finally my aunt was going, my family members, there would be someone to explain to my family members what I was going through. But when we went to that psychiatrist, we entered and we sat down. But how the psychiatrist explained to my aunt, she just said it in general. She didn't dive deeper into really what I was going through. And after about 30 minutes, we were out of there. I felt that I had not yet again gotten the kind of help that I need. After we got out of the psychiatrist's office, I remember I started crying. I really cried so much, to a point we had to go and sit somewhere so that I could cry and let it all out. And all the time my aunt was just there shocked, wondering what is wrong with Jacinta. She couldn't understand I felt she didn't understand what I was going through. The psychiatrist had not told her everything that I was going through, and now I was tired. I didn't know what to do, so I really cried. I cried for about 20 minutes, and after that we went and boarded a matatu. And when we were in that matatu, something told me that one day I'm going to write a book about what I've been going through all these years. It was not easy for me. I really felt so bad. And I told my aunt that she was the one who was supposed to go and explain everything to my family members, but I don't think my aunt went and told them. I think she went and Googled it, but they never understood what it was. So from that day, I never went to a psychiatrist up to now. I've always been struggling on my own, not knowing what to do, because I don't know what will help me with this social anxiety disorder of mine. I even don't know how I survived through that attachment for 3 months. It was so hard for me even to survive those 3 months in attachment. And when the attachment was finally over, I felt somewhat relieved. For a person with social anxiety disorder, working is a very big problem for them. Not because they are lazy, but because of how much anxious they always feel just being around anyone, interacting with people. You are always feeling anxious while interacting with your coworkers, bosses, with anyone. It's always very bad. You even avoid job offers where you know you'll have to interact with people. It limits your career growth. For instance, me, the course I studied is not the course I studied is not what I'm doing right now, because what I studied, I can't do it at all. Even looking back, if I'm taken back before I even started college, if I had known what I really suffer from, I would never have done that college. It has really affected my work life. It has affected it completely. I can't do the work that I studied for. I can't pursue the career of the course that I did back in college. Like for now, the work I do, I don't interact much with people, but I still do feel anxious. For what? Being around my coworkers, being around just anyone. As we are working in the factory, as we are doing what we are supposed to be doing, I'm always feeling this self-conscious. I always feel as if my face looks, there's something about having social anxiety. You avoid eye contact with people. You always feel as if your face looks awkward, looks angry. Let me tell you, these masks, they've really come to help people with social anxiety. Because, you know, a mask, it's like it covers you and makes you become more confident. Even at work, most of the time you'll find me just wearing my mask, because I know whenever I remove my mask and I have to be in front of people, I always feel as if my face looks awkward. I always feel self-conscious, anxious. It's so bad. Every day for me is a struggle. Sometimes I feel so much anxious to a point I feel like quitting going to work. I feel like quitting going to work, but I know if I quit, people will view me as lazy. Especially my family members, they will see as if I'm lazy, I don't want to work, because they won't understand. You know, they just tell you, be bold, be confident. You're always told to be bold, be confident, but they don't know that for me to be bold and confident is very hard. I can't just be calm and concentrate on what I'm doing. I'm always feeling like I'm going to run away and never come back. Yani, I'm always kuvumilia tu, because I know I have to work. I can't just stay at home. It's not easy for me. I think the best job that suits a person, that will be ideal for me, will be a job environment where I know I'll not have to interact or be around people all the time. Talking to someone only takes 10 minutes and I'm drained to the point I just feel like running away. It's talking to people extends a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy. And you know one thing about having social anxiety, telling a person with social anxiety to calm down never helps them. Never tell a person with social anxiety to calm down. It will never help them. Sometimes you are told to changamka, cheer up. Most of the time I've been told to changamka. You look bored, changamka, cheer up. But that also doesn't help, because it's my anxiety that's making me to look bored, to look kama sija changamka. But deep within, I'll want to appear to changamka, to be cheerful, but it's very hard when you are around people. What you can do is just to support people with social anxiety disorder. Never judge them. Just be there to support them. Social anxiety has really affected my relationship. It's very hard for me to develop and keep friendships, romantic relationships. It's so hard for me even to date, to have friends. Up to now, I can tell you I have 0 friends. All my life, I've never had someone I can say is my friend. Not because I don't want to, because it's very hard for me to connect with people. I always find it hard for me to connect with people and interact with them. I've never had a friend. I've never been in a relationship up to now. It's always so hard for me, and it limits my growth. Even I have poor social skills because of that, because I don't interact so much with people. Most of the time, if I'm not going to work or I'm not going to some event that is important, you'll find me in the house, because it's always so hard for me to interact with people, even family members. So it cuts across all people. So it has really affected my relationship. For me, if I was asked what I wanted, I would really love to connect with people, to have friends, to be in a relationship, but it's always so hard for me. I've always tried, but I always find it so hard. At the end of it, I always feel so drained to a point I can't do it. What made me to come out and speak to the world about my condition living with social anxiety disorder? It's because of how much I've suffered all these years alone. In Kenya, this condition is not well known. People are out there suffering on their own. I know there are others who are like me here in Kenya, but for some, even they don't know that they have social anxiety. To them, they just think that they are just fearful, they are just anxious, they don't even understand what they are going through. I would like to tell you, if you are out there, don't worry. You are not alone. I also go through the same. And I've researched and I've found support groups, Facebook support groups of people that are not even in Kenya, that are in America, who are going through what I'm going through here in Kenya. But here in Kenya, I've not met anyone. If you are out there and you're going through what I'm going through, I'd really love to tell you that you are not alone. There are so many people like you who are going through the same. And if you are addicted to alcohol or drugs because you take drugs and alcohol as a way of managing it, stop it. Alcohol and drugs has never helped social anxiety. I've also been tempted to use them, but I realized that if I use alcohol and drugs, I'll only become an addict to alcohol, to drugs, and I won't get help. For me, I've always been judged. I've always been labeled shy, quiet, sensitive, ongeangi na what you get. No one even one time has ever sat me down and asked me, Jacinta, why are you always like this? People tend to judge people for being the way they are. What you should do, if someone tells you that they are going through what I'm going through, what you can do is just be there to support them. If they tell you they are feeling anxious about doing something, do that thing for them or help them do it. If it's going for a social occasion and they have to go and they feel they'll not manage being on their own, go with them and be there to support them. No matter how awkward they'll behave, just be there to support them and to help them whenever they need your help. To my family members, I know you've always seen me as quiet. I know everyone knows that I'm quiet, that niko muoga, I'm fearful. Mi ni muoga, I'm maybe shy, but I've never shared with you what I've been going through all these years because it's been so hard for me to share. Since the day I discovered, it's always been so hard for me to share it with you, because I knew you wouldn't understand it. And that's why I felt that this platform is the best for you to hear what I've been going through all these years. It's not been easy for me. What I need from you is for you to always be there to support me and to help me, for you not to judge me or say that I'm lazy, for you never to tell me that be confident, be bold, do this. I just need your support, for you to support me in this journey. For parents out there, you might be having a kid who is extremely shy, who is quiet, who doesn't talk that much, who is very fearful, and you wonder, okay, what's wrong with my kid? Why is my kid always like this? For children, it comes out as being extremely shy, quiet. They spend most of their time alone, never interact with people that much, clingy behavior, tantrums, crying when they are with a group of children or adults, they start crying. If you see those behaviors in your kids, take them for therapy. And also to parents, childhood trauma affects a child's growth. Childhood trauma is real. For parents out there, if your kid goes through a childhood traumatic event, take that child for therapy. Go and take that child for therapy, for help. Find help for that child. Like for instance, myself. Can you imagine if my parents, already they knew at 3 years I feared boys. Already they knew that I was always quiet, anxious, you get. But can you imagine if they took me for therapy? I'll not be where I am right now. So parents out there, never ignore. If you see a behavior in your kid that you feel is not normal, take your kids for them to be helped. if only people knew how much I wish I was normal like them, even for just one day, for me to feel how people feel confident while doing their normal activities. Sometimes I even just tell myself, if I could just be normal for one day and not feel anxious even for a day. Every single day I usually feel anxious. There's no day that have ended without me feeling anxious. Let's say today I've not gone for work. I'll still feel anxious. For what? Let me say I'm walking in the stairs and I know someone I know and I have to greet them and interact with them. I'll feel anxious. Let me say I'm going to a shop to buy something. I'll feel anxious going to that shop to buy something. The only time I don't feel anxious is when I'm alone in the house. And it's so bad. It's very scary to live with this condition. It's a very scary condition on the inside. It makes you a slave to your own self. Sometimes I usually feel as if my real personality is locked up in a box. And that box only opens up when I'm alone in the house. Because there are things I can do when I'm alone in the house. But when I'm around just anyone, no matter how much I'm used to you, I'll not do it. I feel as if I have this flat, boring personality. Yes, I know that I have a personality deep within, but it's as if it's always locked in a box. And it limits me so much. It limits how far I go in life. It makes you, it's very hard to live with a condition that affects all areas of your life. Working, relationship-wise, school-wise, everything. Now, how will you survive even in this world? That's why even people get addicted to alcohol and drugs and all those things, because it's so hard. You find life so hard for you and you don't know what to do. You don't know where to start. Even me, most of the times I've always feel like giving up just in life, because I just sit down and I wonder, how am I going to survive in this life? What am I going to do? It can even make you commit suicide, because it's very hard. Let me say that. What I can say, living with this condition is very hard. It's not easy. And for me to have been judged all my life, I know people will be shocked when they see me talking, because I have never told anyone about what I've been going through, because people always tend to judge you. Even when you tell them, people out there never judge someone. I know people have always talked against me. I've been talked about in a negative way by people, especially my college life. My college life was so hell. I've always been talked about. I don't even like meeting my college mates, because I know the image they were left about me, shy, anxious, ongeangi, na what you get, negative things. There's nothing positive about my life in college, and it really hurts me that people tend to judge people and laugh at people without knowing exactly what the person is going through. So people should stop judging people. Never judge someone unless you know their story. If you know you are out there and you are like me, I would really love for me to meet you, for us to make a support group where we can help each other, where we can meet, unwind, be ourselves around each other, not care about how people are going to view us. I would really love to meet other people who are like me, a person who I can tell everything that I've been going through. And also, it's not necessarily for people who have social anxiety. For people who have social anxiety, and also for people who are normal, anyone that's willing to connect with me and just be there to support me, to be friends with me, to be there to help me, I'm ready. And for those with social anxiety, reach out to me, and together we can help each other. We can create support groups, and also help each other go further in life. And also, if there is anyone out there who can help me, maybe a psychologist or a person who knows what living with social anxiety is like, I'd really love to meet someone who can walk with me in this journey and help me. For people who are like me, know that you are not alone. Reach out to me, and together we can help each other.